What are the most critical changes you're seeing in how businesses are tackling cybersecurity and IT management?
So the way things are being done is a little bit more protocol now. I'd say it's less of a free for all. I'm going to manage the environment a certain way. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Let's say automation patch management systems that enterprises should be leveraging today with their RMM solutions.
And then you move away from a scripting-based routine to like a workflow type of work in IT departments. And it's been great to see how this changing the way IT managers, IT directors that we've been speaking with, they all have been reporting that using automation in a good way.
RMM is quite ambitious. The promise is to identify the issues before they have a chance to impact your IT operations. So building on that effective 360 degrees IT stack for protection, it is still a bit of a complex undertaking. It takes time to get where you are.
So we take security very seriously. The updates that organizations are putting out in terms of platforms we use, for example, if Cloudflare saying, HTTP, which we haven't ever used because we always use HTTPS for security for exact those reasons. Clients that we've had suggested, hey, you have to do these things. This has never happened to us. It's not going to happen. What happens, it happens. And then it's a lot harder. Sometimes businesses even go out of business because of this. So yeah, I think, like I said, a lot of those, you have to take that seriously, full view from preventative, like educational.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Security Strategist podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Shubhangi Dua. I'm an editor and a tech journalist at EM360 Tech, and I will be your host today. In this episode, I am speaking with Edgar Zacharjev, SVP of Product and Strategy at Pulseway, and Elias Moura, the Head of Product Marketing at Pulseway. And we'll be talking about the constantly shifting and ever-evolving cybersecurity threats and IT complexity today. We are breaking down essential strategies from RMM and patching to ransomware defense and automation as well. Join us as we discuss critical strategies to build a strong and resilient enterprise. Hi, both. So just to get started, I would like to know a little bit about yourself. So Elias, maybe if you could tell me first, how did you start working in cybersecurity? Why this field? Where are you from?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the head of product marketing here at Pulseway. Thanks for having us today here, Shubhangi. So I've been working in marketing and SaaS space for almost 15 years now. So yeah, it's been like a great journey in Pulseway. I know like seeing like IT departments and MSPs growing their business and making things better in terms of IT management. So yeah, thanks for having me today. Yeah.
How about you, Edgar?
Yeah, my name's Edgar, and I've worked in this space for over a decade now in the managed service provider, internal IT, infrastructure, monitoring management, security, compliance. Quite some time, and I've seen quite a few changes over the time for the better as well, throughout compliances and everything else. So excited to be here and kind of dive into the topic a little bit more.
I'm very excited to have you both on. And, when you talked about like the constant changes in this industry, my brain just hit AI, but I don't want to dive into AI right away. So just to begin with, we have businesses of so many different, obviously from small businesses to large scale businesses, but all of them have one thing in common. They face non-typical challenges, especially when it comes to maintaining the security and efficient IT operations. Be it anyone, we all have challenges. So can you tell us a little bit more about the core essentials? What are the most critical changes you're seeing in how businesses are tackling cybersecurity and IT management? And why are these changes so important right now?
Yeah, I can start with that, Shubhangi. So yeah, we see a couple of things, like working with, like thousands of users in this moment, and we see key challenges. And one of them, I can say, is like the hybrid and the remote setups. And this adds complexity in relation to managing IT, because you have like more users in different places, and then you have like more devices and types of devices across your IT environment. And all of this adds, like complexity. And then that's why we're seeing like IT professionals moving from a more reactive approach to a more proactive approach with the right tools and processes in place to tackle these types of challenges that are the key ones. And obviously, in the cybersecurity front, you see like more and more sophisticated threats that goes after companies of all sizes, enterprise, mid-market enterprise, and the small companies as well. So yeah, these are a couple of the main challenges, Rayad.
How about you, Edgar?
So I mean, that was, it's one of the changes that was impacted obviously throughout COVID, remote work, etc. Different setups, different requirements, local networks, all sorts of different complications. More so, I'm seeing around the compliance regulations that are more prominent in areas. Whether that's, you have to abide by PCI compliance, therefore you need protocols for, if I'm remoting into a machine, I need a 2FA every time I'm remoting in, specifically within the monitoring solution. So those have become requirements where organizations have to abide by, whether that's regulations within the automotive industry for security logging, etc. So the way things are being done is a little bit more protocol now. I'd say it's less of a free for all. I'm going to manage the environment a certain way. I don't think that's the case anymore. Organizations are encouraged or demanded to follow the security protocols of how they manage the systems, how they manage their environments. Not only the fact that they're trying to prevent issues, but also ensure, because there's a lot of power within access to all those environments, also not only to be proactive to resolve issues, but also that they're doing it in a secure way. So, and that's becoming, again, more, and I see just becoming more and more prominent, which is a good thing for organizations as a whole and the consumers of those organizations as well.
Well, you talked about protocols and regulations and compliance. I've often spoken to analysts in this field, and thought leaders have one thing to say: while protocols are great to keep in line, they can also slow down the technological developments and the ability to actually tackle any cyber attack, for instance, especially with now AI fighting AI in terms of cyber threats. So, what do you think about that?
Obviously, things slow down when you have to follow protocols, but overall protocols introduce a more secure layer. It makes the organization follow better rules, I guess, in terms of being not penetrated to begin with, right? So, and I see this a lot. A lot of complaints. Obviously, compliance is not a fun thing, or rules, regulations, and protocols, etc. But it is important not only for the company itself, but if that company has critical information on their clients, they're responsible for their clients' data in the same way. So we have to also look at the end user, whether that's a little bit of a pain in the ass right now. I mean, the objective is the same. So I do agree that it slows things down, but I don't particularly agree it's a bad thing, because it encourages companies to take this more seriously, whether they want to or not. And to me, that's ideal, because again, more so for not only the company, but for the end users who's, for example, I go into a car dealership, I buy a vehicle, I get a loan, a finance loan. I give that dealership my social security numbers, my credit card, my bank information. So I do want them to take protocols. Of course I do. So to that sense, me as a consumer, I should be happy that those companies are being forced to take it a lot more diligently.
That makes sense. Look at the long-term goal as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
We've seen the hacks across. I'm not going to name names, but where data gets leaked, millions of data gets leaked. The people that suffer from it is the users with the data getting leaked. So obviously it impacts the organization, but it's the organization's job to keep that information secure. So, but for the user, if your personal data is now on the internet, that can be accessed, can be manipulated, used, and that's a concern. I think that's what we have to be concerned about.
And the costs implications are unfathomable with that anyway. So let's talk about remote monitoring and management, in short, RMM. For those who are still new to the concept in the audience, I think everybody will still know, but just if you could briefly explain what it is and how it functions within an average business IT environment.
I mean, like monitoring and management solution is usually like the key piece of an IT management strategy. So if, for instance, an IT department obviously needs to be on top of servers, workstations, mobile devices, network infrastructure, and then for all of this IT universe, you need like a solid software to do like the monitoring, the management, and then usually a good RMM offers like different a combination of tools for you to do this properly. So you have like automation, remote control, as well as like a central feature that makes the RMM like an effective tool. So yeah, the RMM is usually the central piece to make sure that IT management it's flowing and tackling different issues that your end user could face. So yeah, that's essentially what RMM is.
My next question would be to build on that foundation in today's constantly changing and improving digital atmosphere. Of course, why is consistent system patching still so important and yet often overlooked? And how can it build upon a very strong cybersecurity strategy? And I also feel like RMM is quite ambitious in that sense, where the promise is to identify the issues before they have a chance to impact your IT operations. So how would you like go about it?
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of two ways about this. So, patching, why it's important, right? So, I mean, we're talking about operating systems, so Windows patching, and then all your third-party applications that are on the computer, your other software that the company installs. What is a big vector to penetration? Obviously, the number one vector is users. So, lack of user education and users get penetrated and then expands, right? Because it's easiest vertical. But also then it's the vulnerabilities within applications. So when there's a vulnerability, an old system, that's why updates happen all the time. And that's why even Microsoft are really pushing on regular updates constantly. It's all cloud services now, less of the, I mean, they've made some comments about WSUS, like that they don't want to withhold downloads, so they're kind of looking to end support for that. Everybody understands the criticality of updating. That's how we saw a lot of attacks happen in healthcare, for example, as outdated operating systems that have vulnerabilities. So the longer the operating system is at play without getting updated, the more chance the bad guys, as we say, have time to find out how to penetrate it. So that's why the current is so important. Now, I do understand a lot of companies take time to updating systems, and because maybe the update that goes out has some issues and impacts the organization. So they want to test it, they want to review it, so they might take a month, 6 weeks before they roll something out and impacts the users. So there's that balance, obviously. That's why a good schedule is important, so like that you can't rely on your users to update their own machines. So you need a scheduled system to do that. So I think that's where, Pulseway, for example, serves its priorities. We work with over 15,000 clients worldwide, so we kind of understand the best behavior towards a schedule, right? When an update's available, to check for the update, to have an approval step to review the update. When it's approved, it gets implemented or downloaded at specific times that it doesn't impact the user, right? So outside business hours, during lunch, etc. Reboots happen, etc. So we force a reboot, because without a reboot, the update doesn't happen. And we understand how users like to click the button snooze. Update, would you like to restart your machine now? Snooze. And this snooze might go on for 6 months, because that's just the general nature. I mean, everybody does it. So forcing that reboot is important. It might annoy the user a little bit, but that's of little concern compared to the chances. So it's just one thing that you should be doing that doesn't have to take up a lot of time. So when we say patching, we think, okay, it's going to be a lot of work. It's not. If you have a good schedule, you set and forget. Something that Pulseway does specifically, you set the schedule, the type of updates, the approvals, and then you just get a report. Here's your status of your updates. And so it's another thing that we're trying to take away from manual and seem like it's a manual intensive labor, which it doesn't have to be.
This is where automation also sort of comes into the play. So what are some of the key advancements in such, well, let's say automation patch management systems that enterprises should be leveraging today with their RMM solutions?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to automation, and we love automation because this is like a turning point for making IT teams like more efficient, like in an effective way, so you remove like the burden of repetitive tasks that, that are consuming like a lot of time from technicians. And then you move away from a scripting based routine to like a workflow type of work in IT departments. And it's been great to see how this changing the way IT managers, IT directors that we've been speaking with, like they all have been reporting that using automation in a good way. And we hear like a lot of IT pros saying like, hey, but using automation can be difficult and time consuming, but that's the point, like you spend a little bit of time to work on the automation, the workflows, and then you save time in the long term. And then through workflows, you can do like a lot of things, like from small things to, like detect unapproved apps, disable USB mass storage support, or kill processes once there's like too much of CPU usage and things like this, to more complex things, like deploying agents for a certain solution that you have in your stack. So automation is a universe itself, and we've been working in that sense to make sure that it's available for all IT professionals of all levels. So if it's easy to use, if it's based like on drag and drop actions for you to build a workflow in a couple of minutes, even like a less experienced IT professional can build a good workflow and start automating things, definitely these days, automation is key, and you cannot imagine like an RMM without automation.
So you mentioned agents, and this just clicks AI agents, because that's exactly what everyone's been talking about. And the biggest fear with AI agents right now is we don't know where it's going, but we also know that, like earlier I mentioned, AI versus AI. So there's this fear that now AI agents could be fighting AI agents who are essentially a malicious software. How can organizations be mindful of with their RMM strategy and their cybersecurity in general, and still be careful of the AI, of adopting AI agents rather? And how would you advise an organization to strategize their cybersecurity perimeter around that advancement?
It's buzzwords, etc. Like AI is being adopted, and that's the end of it. There's no turning back on this. It's just organizations internally how they're using this have to be careful what data they process through it, what they build in. Like I said, use it internally. You shouldn't move away from not using it because you're going to be left behind in terms of advancements. So it's just you take protocols, what sensitive data gets pushed and where that's maybe contained locally with information if it's being used locally. If every company is using AI currently internally to benefit their company in the same vector, these malicious organizations are going to use AI for their benefit because that's their business type. They're a business that they make money off compromising other businesses. So of course they're going to use it for that specific purpose because they're behaving like a business. But anything greater like this is becoming phishing emails and everything else becoming a lot more sophisticated, realistic. So a lot more focus on email security, a lot more focus on user security awareness training. Like AI is progressing. I don't think the user knowledge is progressing in the same factors it should be in terms of security awareness training. So that needs to be a component that gets focused. Whether AI also maybe gets used in terms of finding vulnerabilities. That's why patching is important, right? Let all those other organizations focus on updating their systems. You just make sure you have a good schedule that just follows that specifically. So, but internally, obviously, the protocols that you have for training that nobody clicks something they shouldn't, that stuff gets discovered. People pay a little bit more attention to what they're opening and don't make any assumptions that this is safe or this is not safe. So the awareness side is important. And in terms of how it's being built, we're using AI to build components into our automation, for example. Obviously, everything is self-contained within our environment, so the data stays there. But to automatically build automation for you, so again, it becomes even easier. And that's the point: is getting from A to B a lot quicker and making sure it's done in the right way. So again, that's where the protocols come into to the items. I know it's a pain in the ass, and everybody wants to go and just build whatever they want and do whatever they want, but that is not a long sustainable vision because that's going to bite you in the ass pretty much down the line. So protocols are important. That you're taking this seriously, whether you're using it to build something as a product offering, that you are taking the necessary steps to ensure everything is safe and secure, and also then from the other side. So that's why, as much as I previously did not like protocols or processes as things that slow you down, I think they're one of the most fundamental things to focus on now, because security is such a big thing.
We'll come back to protocols, but I guess maybe not. Maybe we talk about protocols now, and how my main question to you would be, what should IT teams be watching for, especially when it comes to anomaly detection, automation? What should they really be watching for, and in terms of their awareness training, and also with regards to protocols and regulations, these are so different across the states in the United States, across different regions it's different, across the world it's different, EU is different, UK is different. So what should be the main lookout here?
I think like it's impossible for those teams to learn every single best. That's where you got to utilize your vendors that you're working with. So when you buy software, like whether that's Pulseway or somebody else, we have an offering for MDR, so a team that monitors vulnerabilities and abnormal behavior on your behalf and alerts you when something happens, because that's what they specialize in. And that takes thousands and thousands of clients and data to be able to get to that point. So it's unreasonable for or expect a singular organizations to come up with every protocol. So I would suggest, do listen to the vendors you're working with. Find the right vendor partners that, match your needs in that sector, that space, that location, etc., that you have to follow, because they obviously have a ton of information and data, and then work towards the suggestions that you are offered. Oftentimes, I find people, a little bit stubborn, and it's like, okay, well, I know you're suggesting this, but we're going to do it our way anyway. So, be open to it and know that that's based on a lot more data than you can subside internally. So even though I know it's a lot of data, like I said, it's not feasible for a company internally to figure out all what's happening in the security trend unless they have a full security team that's working 24/7 to monitor this, which most organizations don't. Work with your vendors, use them as your arm of excellence. So around security, around monitoring, around patching. So that would be my comment on that.
Also, Shubhangi, yeah, in relation to things that, like IT professionals should be like watching for, like we've seen like, like having conversation with our users, like people that have been breached before because they were using like a third-party remote control. So, we have like the basics that need to be covered, like the phishing situation, the unpatched systems, weak remote control. It's another example, like compromised credentials. So these are the things that, understanding what are the potential problems, IT professionals start building the strategy and the IT stack going from these situations that can occur from the cybersecurity perspective. And also, I mentioned like building like an IT stack. Another thing that is pretty key for them to watch for when building an IT stack, a solid IT stack, because again, the RMM is the central piece, and then you build around this. So you need like an AV that it's basic, but also like an endpoint detection and response solution, dark web monitoring, automated penetration testing, and all of these different tools and strategy build a solid multi-layered cybersecurity strategy. So I agree with Edgar. It's not like one way or one layer. It's a combination, and you don't know everything. You cannot learn everything at once. Things are evolving so fast. So that would be my take in that topic.
In that case, could either of you give me a real life example of how Pulseway has been able to like tackle, let's say, one of the most challenging security issues with another company? How you've been able to help them?
A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to one of our users, Chris Fry. He's based like in New York. He's a growing managed IT service provider, and during our conversation, he said that he received like a call from an end user, from a customer, from his client, saying, "Hey Chris, I have this system here that is offline. What's going on?" And the client was already fuming, and then Chris was so confident about the process and the strategy that he built that he said, "Hey, first of all, we know, thanks for letting me know, but we know of this situation, and we know that the system is offline. It was like a ransomware attack. So your company was under a ransomware attack. And then because we have like a ransomware detection strategy in place, the system automatically identified the situation, isolated the system, put it off, so we have time to analyze it further. So in a couple of minutes, your system will be back up and running as usual. So, like he was fully prepared with the right strategy. Instead of being reactive, like, what is this, Mr. Customer? I'm sorry. No, he was ready to reply, to position, and like building trust, being effective, being proactive. And I'm sure that this is a type of relationship that would last long. So yeah, that's pretty much something that recently I heard from one of our users here. Yeah.
Amazing. That's great. Like, it helps me to know that organizations have a reliable source, and it helps me to know that you don't have to panic at every situation, which is what human nature is. And as we come closer to the end of this podcast, I still have two more important questions for you. So I guess my next question would be, now that we've established what RMM tools offer, in your experience, what are some of the most impactful benefits of leveraging RMM for proactive IT management? So I guess based on your example, if you could give me a little more technical advice in terms of that, using an example or not.
It's important when using like an RMM that you dive into the things that are important from an RMM perspective. So setting up the policies. So for instance, when you talk about like a patch management, it's a patch management process based on policies. So you have like and let's zoom in patch management, for instance, again. So it's a balance of automation and having the possibility to have granular control over your policy, like, so you have things that you need to be fully automated, but on the other side, you have things that you don't want to be automated because you can just deploy things that will slow down your systems. So understanding the policies, understanding the way they work, you make sure that you have like a very balanced process. And yeah, I'm not sure if Edgar wants to bring another aspect from the technical perspective.
I think we summarized a lot of it, like in the points. I mean, it's all about policy setup, and if it's done the right way and set up the right way from the beginning in terms of your monitoring, the metrics you're monitoring, how you're notified, your automation, your procedures, it doesn't have to be a lot of work. I mean, you're basically working off reports, and then you just custom suggestions. Everything has changed significantly from people just having to remote into a machine, remote control, take control of it. That you don't have to do that as much anymore, and that's the principle of it. So I would, again with the focus on policies, the setup, the protocols, because once they're set up internally, I mean, it's not extra work. So all those are also provided by a lot of these vendors. So, and that's where it's headed, and the automation that gets suggested, etc. It's reviewed, so it's a lot more digestible for every. I think people within this space, they don't have to be as technical as they used to be previously, in a sense, for it to be as effective because of the software that's in place. So, and that's a good thing. It's easier to hire. It's easier to get more resources. So it's overall beneficial. And technology like this is going to keep evolving in such a way that more of a set and forget as much as possible, that it's just doing its job as it needs to be. And that's to me the ideal state for any of the software that is just there and it does what it's supposed to, and notifies you, hey, we found detected a corrupt file. We've isolated and deleted it for you. Just an FYI, And you look at it as like, great. I didn't have to do anything and stuff.
Yeah, also, like Shubhangi, just to make another comment here, you have scenarios where an IT department has like different, like several tools and disconnected tools. To do remote control is one solution. To do patch management is another solution. And then you have another solution to do monitoring and management. And what we see in Pulseway is that we can unify all this universe to do everything in one place. So you can be proactive, you can be on top of things in the same place. You don't need to keep jumping from tab to tab, from solution to solution, because you have all the information there in your front. You can use like dashboards, reports, and then you can dive deep into one device specifically that you need to troubleshoot, like enabling like a workflow or something that is pre-built. So you see that you can understand and create a flow to have like a very complete management in one place. And this is the great value. Additionally, and I have to mention this, in Pulseway, for instance, we have the mobile app. So having the mobile app, it's pretty much having the RMM in your pocket, and anytime you can just grab your iPhone and run a script, a workflow, seeing a report, rebooting a machine or something. So I would say that this is probably one of the great impacts of having like a solid RMM like this, in your department.
I actually really like the aspect of unified platform where you don't have to open multiple tabs and make everything complicated. But I also like the fact when earlier both of you mentioned that there is still that human element remaining with automation. Automation alone cannot solve everything. So I like that, humans be converted, you still have jobs. AI is not going to take it away. So I like that aspect of it as well. Moving on. So building on that effective 360 degrees IT stack for protection, it is still a bit of a complex undertaking. It takes time to get where you are, especially with like so many different challenges in terms of cybersecurity faced every day. And some of them you may not even know are coming because you don't know what kind of a threat it could be. Some are identified, some are not. How do you personally ensure that for yourself, not just for other organizations? How are you mindful with your security tools and strategies?
I mean, internally, obviously, we take it very seriously, whether that's internal penetration testing regularly, external vulnerability detections. So we take security very seriously. The updates that organizations are putting out in terms of platforms we use, for example, if Cloudflare are saying, HTTP, which we haven't ever used because we always use HTTPS for security for exact those reasons. Like everything that's happening in the space, we take adjustments and move with it. We have make sure we have good protocols in place in case there is potentially an issue. So things get locked down and no client is impacted. We test it. We have disaster recovery testing regularly. So it's a lot of protocols that we personally have to take, and I think that's important as the type of vendor that we are. That like we're at the forefront of security, and that's why that a lot of our knowledge does come from, and when we give it for free to our clients, we do not maybe have the same expertise and skill sets or resources that, for example, we do. And it's not only us; it's other organizations within the space how to approach this and why it's important. I mean, it's obviously it is use of time and resources to do internal testing regularly, security awareness training for employees, simulated phishing attacks. So we'll create simulated phishing attacks to test our users regularly to see if they are falling for it. Our own schedules. So it is time consuming, but again, it's one of those things. You're preventing things from happening because it's a lot more time consuming when something does happen. So a lot of people that say, we don't have the time, we'll be fine. We're too small. It's not going to happen to us. I've heard those words too many times, and I've seen the impact of that of other organizations. With clients that we've had suggested, hey, you have to do these things. This has never happened to us. It's not going to happen. What happens? It happens. And then it's a lot harder. Sometimes businesses even go out of business because of this. So yeah, I think, like I said, a lot of those you have to take that seriously. Full view from preventative, like educational, to real time monitoring of detection if something does penetrate. So detecting ransomware, file corruptions, your backend code, etc. Then you have a disaster recovery strategy for isolation, for recovery. So you can isolate issues if they do happen. So the full spectrum between basically around, if we think about it, you identify, you follow the protocols for that, you protect. So you have like your AV, EDR, MDR, uh, ransomware detection, everything in place on your machines, your systems, your switches, your across the board. There's a detection mechanism so that they can detect and respond to it specifically. So something might get through no matter how secure you are. Someone might get into your house, realistically. So it's like thinking, I would say, look, a lot of people think it's like protecting your home. You'll have a camera outside your house to deter, right? Maybe an alarm system. Maybe you barricade your front windows or something, but then you leave your back door open. And that's what see sometimes people will do one thing, but they'll leave one thing completely open, but it's insurance. And then when somebody does get into your house, there's a trap or something, or there's a call response that goes to the police that make them come out as soon as possible so that nothing gets damaged or stolen. So people might get in, but as long as you prevent them doing the damage, that's okay. And you can take that as a learning for the future. So,
Well, if each of you could summarize one key takeaway from our conversation today, particularly for CISOs, what would it be and why? Really briefly.
We know there's cyber threats are evolving fast, So I think the key for now, as we've been learning, is that the ability to detect and respond faster makes all the difference. So having the right strategy in place, the right tools in place, tools that are not only automated or powered by AI, but it's also integrated. I think it's key for effective cyber strategy these days, Shubhangi.
Thank you. Edgar.
I think for CISO specifically, I'd say, hey, keep championing the requirements internally to the CEO, to the other executives, so the whole organization invests more time into cybersecurity, number one, because oftentimes it is a struggle as to convincing other leadership that we do need to invest more money, more time, and this needs to be taken seriously. So keep fighting a good fight and championing it day to day, raising awareness internally, and then work with your cybersecurity vendors, use technology to accelerate and get the information from the industry of what's happening with the trends.
So just to summarize everything we've talked about today, I've taken some notes. So I know have a solid IT stack, be patient, implement policies, and most importantly, have awareness training. Is that it?
Yeah.
Totally.
Great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Edgar and Elias, for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on. And also thank you for everyone for tuning in. We hope you took a lot away from the podcast today. For further information on what we've talked about, please head on over to pulseway.com. We'll be back with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, make sure you subscribe to all major platforms and follow our conversations on EM360 Tech on X and LinkedIn. For more great daily content, head on over to em360tech.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.